Welcome back to the second segment of this law session on public law, electoral law. Immediately before the break, we were talking about proportional methods of voting systems, and in particular, we considered the first past the post, which of course is the predominant way of voting in the UK, certainly in the main election. And the idea is that first past the post tends to be quick, simple, easy. As soon as it's finished, you know who is the winner. But the question, of course, it begs is that truly representative? Because if I go to the polls and let's say I vote for candidate A, but there was some mechanism if I thought for a minute that not a lot of people had voted for candidate A, I would have wanted my vote transferred to candidate B, if at all possible, to give a more proportional approach to the election, which means that at least if candidate B won, I would have felt that my vote went some way in ensuring that. Because let's say, for example, there were 10 votes for C, let's say there's been 8 votes for B, and let's say there were 6 votes for A. But then, because of the least number of votes that A has, let's say that A's votes were then redistributed. Now let's assume that the 6 people who voted for A had B as their second choice. Well, given B had 8 votes, that would mean B now has 14, which would be more than what C had obtained. It would mean, therefore, that at least those 14 people had B either as their first choice of candidate or their second choice of candidate. So that's the idea behind proportional representation. It is to show that at the very least you are part of the selection process, rather than if you look at, for example, the 252 seats that the Labour Party got in the elections. The problem with that, of course, is that for those 252 seats, would it be a suggestion that those persons have wasted their votes, if you see what I mean? Because their party, as much as 252 seats went to the Labour Party, it is not those electors' government who is in power. So the idea is, should there have been, for example, the alternative? Well, truly proportional methods, of course, make some guarantee of proportionality by making each winning option represent approximately the same number of voters. And this, of course, is a quota. So, for example, if the quota is 1,000 voters, then each elected candidate reflects the opinions of 1,000 voters within a margin of error. Now, most proportional systems in use are based on a party list proportional representation, in which voters vote for parties instead of individual candidates, for example. Now, for each quota of votes a party receives, one of their candidates wins a seat on the legislature. Now, the method differs in how the quota is determined or how the proportion of votes are rounded off to match the number of seats. This, of course, is not without criticism, because arguably that personal touch of you choosing the candidate that you want may, of course, be lost. Because what you have here is, for example, as I say, a party list system, you're going to be choosing for a list, a group, you're selecting a party. And then the numbers are such that based on the number of people who vote for that party, that is the party that wins. And then, of course, you can start divvying up or dividing up the seats. Independently of the method used to assign seats, party list systems, of course, can be an open list or a closed list. In an open list, voters decide which candidate within a party win the seat. In a closed list, the seats are assigned to a candidate in a fixed order that it is the party of the party's choosing. Now, there's also the mixed member proportional system, and it is a mixed method that only uses a party list for some of the winners and then fill other seats with the winners of regional elections, and then you have a feature of a sort of part open list and a part closed list. Now, in contrast to the party list system, the one that, in my personal view, seems to be one of the fairest then, and it is the single transferable vote, and it is a proportional representation system in which voters rank individual candidates in order of preference. And as I say, in the recent election for the police commissioner, this is what was utilized. Well, unlike party list systems, the single transferable vote does not depend on the candidate being grouped into political parties. Votes are transferred between candidates in a manner which is similar to what is called instant runoff voting. And what that means is that you use voter preference to simulate an elimination where you have, as such, a selection. And as the votes are tallied, the option with the fewest first choice votes is eliminated. So what that means is, candidate A, B, C, like I gave you before. Candidate C has 10. Candidate A has, no, you know what? Let's make it 4 candidates. Make it a little bit more complicated. Candidate A, B, C, and D. Let's say that A gets 20 votes. Let's say that B gets 15 votes. And let's say C gets 10 and D gets 9. Well, the starting point is to take the voters for D, that 9, and redistribute it to the second choices. And it is where you go down by a process of elimination. So by the redistribution, you carry on until you get 2 clear winners, basically. So the idea is, as the votes are tallied, the option with the fewest first choice voters is eliminated, and then in successive rounds of counting, the next preferred choice still available from each eliminated ballot is transferred to candidates who are not yet eliminated, and the least preferred option is eliminated in each round of counting until there is a majority winner, with all the ballots being considered in every round of counting. So it is similar, when you look at the single transferable vote, it is similar to the runoff, which occurs like that. But in addition to transferring votes from candidates who are eliminated, excess votes are also transferred from candidates who already have a quota. Now that's an interesting one, because what they're saying is that you have a quota, how many you need to win. So this is where, for example, you have a multi-candidate system. Let's say you're running for local government and you need 3 candidates within the ward. Let's say that based on the total numbers in the ward, you need 300 persons being the quota for each candidate to basically win. Okay? So so you have maybe 6 candidates running for these 3 seats. The idea would be, let's say the quota to meet is 300. Let's say candidate 1 has 200, candidate 2 has 150, candidate 3 has 100, and let's say candidate 4, 5, and 6 respectively have 90, 90, 90. Well, what we're going to start doing is taking their votes to transfer it over to the second choices to see if, first of all, candidate A, who had, say, 250 vote, let's say his goes to, based on second choice voting, he gets 350 votes. Well, he only needed 300. His excess votes then start going to the other candidates in order to meet that quota. So it is complicated, but the idea behind it, of course, is representation. Now, different proportional representation systems, again, use different types of divisions geographically. And in some party list system or single transferable vote systems, all representatives are elected at large with votes that may come from anywhere in the electorate, whilst in others, the larger area is divided up into multi-member districts, kind of like I say to you, wards with, say, a 3-member, and it causes a trade-off between greater proportional accuracy for larger districts and greater geographical specificity for smaller districts. Now, the mixed members proportional system, which I mentioned, has some district-based winners and some at-large winners. Now, over the past 30 years, and especially since 1997, the UK's electoral arrangement have been markedly more diverse, as we've said earlier. And the question then is, can we still be looking at, for example, the first past the post? Well, when you look at the considerations and the consequences, when you look at the majoritarian systems, they appear to offer better representation of local interests, clearer identifiability, and also accountability. The thing with proportional systems, they offer better or appear to offer fair representation and can offer better voter choice. They encourage coalitions as well, which seem to be positive for legitimacy. It may, of course, negative accountability and stability. We see this sort of playing out at present as it relates to the coalition government here. But what becomes evident is that no system can fully satisfy all the criteria. The greater popularity in respect of mixed systems may be that they offer, or they seem to offer, the best of all worlds. Now, in the last election in 2010, and this is where I want to leave you with pause for thought, is that the results of the May 2010 general election in the UK was this. The number of seats that the Conservatives got was 303. The Labour Party got 258. The Lib Dems got 57. And there were 28 others. Now, based on the number of seats, how did this pan out in respect of the percentage of voters? Well, the Conservatives got 36% of the voters with 306 seats. Labour with 258 seats got 29% of the votes. But the Lib Dems only got 57 seats, but they got 23% of the votes. There were others of 12%. I don't want you to lose a significant point here. Labour got 258 seats, which equaled to 29% of the votes. Lib Dem had 201 seats less, but they got 23% of the votes. There is something clearly wrong or apparently wrong with the drawing of the boundaries, because when you look at 23% of the popular vote going to the Lib Dems, but only amounting to 57 seats, that seems as if something is clearly wrong. As it relates to percentage of seats, again, as I say, 29% of voters for Labour meant Labour had 40% of the seats. Lib Dems with 23% of voters got 9% of the seats. Now, the overall turnout was somewhere in the order of 65.1%. I would again draw your attention to the very odd result when it comes to the contrast between the Labour and the Lib Dems. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will start off by looking at political party funding.